All right. So as I said, I'm super excited to introduce our next speaker. His name is Greg Lederman, and he's going to do a talk about Crave, how you can enhance employee motivation in 10 minutes by Friday. But before we get to him, I would just like to read a quick introduction just so I can set him up. And I will say I've heard Greg speak many times, and I'm really excited that we were able to get him for today's LiveTilesX conference. So here it is. Greg is a speaker, coach, consultant, and New York Times best-selling author. Over the last 20 years, Greg has worked with thousands of business leaders and managers to implement simple yet performance-driven leadership, employee engagement, and customer experience solutions. Here are some of Greg's results that I'd like to share. Over the past decade, Greg's clients have witnessed more than 90% employee engagement, nearly 3 times the national average, and more than 68% of Greg's clients have been noted on best place to work lists, either in their region, their industry, or on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for annual ranking. His newest book, Crave, You Can Enhance Employee Motivation in 10 Minutes by Friday, was selected by SoundView Executive Book Summaries as one of the top 30 business books of the past year. Now, Greg is going to be talking about this, and he'll make some content available to you, but his book will be available to you both in hardcover as well as Audible as well, I believe, or able to listen to, but he'll get into that. But I'm going to give the stage to Greg right now. Greg, thank you for joining us, and the floor and the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Dan. Before I dive in, you can see my Crave, the slides, right? You can see Correct, the Crave slide, and it just switched to 10 minutes by Friday?
Yep.
All right, good, we're in good shape. So, folks, I'm excited to be here with you today, and not just because I'm passionate about the Crave methodology and love to share it with leaders like you, but because I'm joining you from my bunker here where I've been quarantined in Rochester, New York for the last 8 days with COVID symptoms, you know, if you've had it, the chills, the exhaustion, the headache. But it does feel good to have normal clothes on. I said to Dan in our final prep conversation that it'll be nice to be out of my pajamas for the first time in a week. So I'm all Tylenol'd up, and I got my ibuprofen going, and I'm ready to be here with you folks today. And I am super excited about it because what we're going to cover is really, really important material. I'm going to take you here on a journey where you're going to learn 3 primary cravings that employees have at work. And when you fulfill these cravings, people are happier, they're more motivated, and they're more successful performers. And you're going to learn that when we humans get more of what we crave, you included, really good things happen, like improved employee engagement and better customer experiences, and overall just better business results. And during our hour we have here together today, you're going to have a chance to witness firsthand what those better business results would look like for you and for your company. As part of this, you're going to learn this very powerful and simple management habit, and pay attention to the words management habit. It's a habit that you can deploy with a tiny little investment. As little as 10 minutes a week, you'd be doing an amazing job. And as you heard Dan say in my introduction, my clients have achieved unprecedented employee engagement results. I had a firm that measured engagement with inside organizations so we could prove the results of our work over the last 20 years. And over the last, it was over 25 different industries. They witnessed, as Dan mentioned, more than 90% engagement, and nearly 70% of them did land on a best place to work list. And I can assure you, this wasn't by chance. This is by design. And today I'm psyched to be able to share with you their success and what the secret was to that success, because it is quite simple. However, let me be upfront with you, because I got good news and I got bad news, right? Like I just said, it's simple. That's the good news. Everything I'm going to share with you in the next hour, super simple and easy to do. The bad news, everything you learn in the next hour is going to be really easy, even easier not to do it. See, I'm willing to bet that most of you signed on here today, and this idea of 10 minutes by Friday method or something even similar to it has not been a disciplined and consistent management approach for you. Some of you, yes, many from my experience, no. So I'm going to need to do a good job here today. I'm going to be inspiring you to want to deploy 10 minutes by Friday as an actual management strategy. And you'll see in a few minutes here why I'm emphasizing this idea of a management strategy. So to accomplish this level of inspiration, I'm going to share with you some examples of leaders who's deployed the technique and found it helpful to them to become more effective and trusted leaders. And in turn, they made a better place to work. Now, that's the goal here today too, is everything we cover is about, let's just try to make an even better place to work. And gosh, we all know we're being tested in the COVID times, during these pandemic times, on making better places to work. We're all being tested in different ways. Did we determine whether we could do the hand raise, Jamie?
Hey, Greg, yeah, you can give it a try.
Do people know where the hand raise is on their? Let's do this, folks. If this is, because I'm going to ask the question, if whether or not your organization is already as good as you can possibly get as a place to work, go ahead and do the hand raise on your on the dashboard here. Just wasn't sure on GoToMeeting. Does everybody know where to do that? That's within the attendees link. No? I'm not seeing it, Jamie. So how about this? If this is your first global pandemic, raise your hand. This is your first time getting COVID and being deathly ill for a week, raise your hand. All right, we'll skip the hand raise.
Greg, I'm seeing a bunch of hands raised actually right now in the attendees section.
I'm hoping that was to its first global pandemic. Look, folks, I'm not going to take for granted the investment that you're making in being here today. And no matter how sick I am right now, my number one goal is to make sure you have fantastic take-home value, learning a simple technique that's easy to deploy, easy and not time-consuming. So as crappy as I feel, I promise you, I've brought my A game. All right. Now, but I'm going to need a couple of things in return from you. One, I'm going to need 4 things. One, I need you to engage with me, because I'll be asking questions, and I'll ask you to type into the chat box here in a few minutes. And please take the time to do that, because that will guide our energy and it'll guide our focus as we move forward. And second, have an open mind, because I'm going to share some facts and I'm going to share some opinions and some ideas that challenge your perspective. I guarantee you, it's going to challenge your perspective in a way that's going to cause you to push the boundaries in your thinking. And third, let's have some fun. I'm delighted to be here. This is what I enjoy doing most, so I'm super excited to be here. But for you as well, if we're having fun, we're definitely learning more. And lastly, when you realize the value of what you're going to learn in the next 55 minutes here, commit to taking action. Because that's the key. Action exceeds knowledge every day of the week. So you've got to actually put into action what it is we're going to get to that you're going to learn here. All right, so first point of interaction for us to get us started, let's address a really important question. And type into the chat box, true or false, your response. Are employees your greatest asset? True or false? Go ahead and type that into the chat box. And Jamie, are you seeing them? Because I just don't get to see it in the chat on my side here. But
Yeah, hey Greg, bunch of trues coming through.
Are they mostly true?
Mostly true.
Yeah, okay. So let me share with you my first book I wrote. It was called The 10 Truths. And in Truth 7, Chapter 7 was employees are not your greatest asset. So I'm going to ask everybody one more time. Jamie, let me know how they come in, because again, my chat box is empty here. I don't know why I can't see it. But once again, folks, just think about it. Are employees your greatest asset? True or false? One more try. What are we getting in responses, Jamie?
Let's see. We are looking at mostly true. Someone responded saying only when they are engaged.
All right. So we'll give a gold star, Jamie. Give us a first gold star out to that participant. That's right. Engaged employees work over 50% harder. The research tells us they're 9 times less likely to leave. Engaged employees are our greatest asset. So let's dive into this concept of what we mean by an engaged employee. So we're all on the same page, because it's turned out to be quite the buzzword. I grabbed onto this concept all the way back in 2002. I'm going to take you back to my first ever speaking engagement in San Diego, California. First time ever speaking at a conference and it was executives in the banking industry. Not exactly the easiest of crowds to wow with my topic of expertise. I was super excited. I was going to share with them some very new and yet alarming discoveries in a very new research category. I'm going back almost 20 years ago now. I was there to talk to them about employee engagement. Now, back in 2002, the term employee engagement was not the buzzword it is today. In fact, the business world was still using terms like employee satisfaction. So you got to take yourself back almost 20 years ago. Here's my opening slide, and here's how I presented it, right? I had all these, about 100 plus, mostly gentlemen in suits. And I opened up my speech with, it might horrify you to know that we are in the midst of an employee engagement crisis. Once again, this was nearly 20 years ago. So the concept of employee engagement to these bankers was completely foreign. I then proceeded. I saw them all staring at me. I proceeded. I said, 2/3 of the American workforce are either not engaged or actively disengaged. I wish you could have seen the response that I got. Or shall I say, the lack of response I received. They just stared at me, like as if they were thinking I had 3 heads. Like, what is this guy talking about? People aren't getting, maybe they're thinking people aren't getting married. Gosh, I was sweating almost as much as I am today. My palms were sweaty. The sweat was coming down. I'm literally standing on this stage. This is my first ever conference I've ever spoke at. After a few awkward seconds though, which felt like probably 45 minutes to me, I proceeded with something that was completely off the top of my head. I said, look, let's think about it another way. We're experiencing an energy crisis. And I said it really loud, just like that, like as if increasing my volume was going to get their attention. Right? I said, this is a human energy crisis, not the kind of energy crisis you might have thought of at first, a human energy crisis. I said to them, I said, you as business leaders, you're purchasing the energy of employees. Your company pays an hourly wage or a salary, and in return, you expect a certain amount of positive energy in the form of effort and productivity. But when employees are not engaged, they simply hold back that energy. And it's like, I remember giving them a description. I said, I'm from Rochester, New York. It's the middle of the winter. It would be like opening the windows and just throwing your money out in the middle of the winter, just opening the windows and just throwing the money away. Well, I felt like I got their attention at this point. They clearly didn't like the idea of wasting money, at least. But sadly, it's 19 years later, and I continue to use the exact same slide. All that's changed is the font and the color. Why am I using the exact same slide? Because unfortunately, the realities of employee engagement, they have not changed all that much. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the coming 6, 12, 18 months during these pandemic and post-pandemic times. But look, make no mistake about it, this level of engagement is unacceptable, but it is changeable. Today, we're going to dive into what leading companies are doing to significantly enhance employee engagement. But first, the first thing you have to do is to write down the definition of engaged. I wrote an entire book on this subject because I took basically 50 different engagement studies from all the major providers. I'm going back well over a decade ago. It noted what the 2 main factors are that they're all measuring. And you think about your own engagement studies if you've done them. You're measuring the same things: motivation level and commitment level. So here's the definition for engaged. This way we're all on the exact same page. Please write this down. You're engaged, and your colleagues and your employees that work with and for you are engaged if they're both motivated and committed to do what's best for the organization. But here's the kicker. It's not your job as leaders to motivate others, right? That's the big fallacy. I can motivate others. Some leaders believe that it's their responsibility. You've said it before, right? I can't seem to motivate Johnny, or so-and-so can't seem to motivate his team or her team. I've got news for you. It's not your job to motivate others. This is one of the biggest takeaways you're going to get in our time. You can't motivate anyone in a sustainable way. You've tried, right? You've tried to pay people more money, and how did that work out? Right? You tried different perks, but to no avail, right? Motivation is intrinsic. They call it intrinsic motivation for a reason. It's within each of us humans, and it's up to each one of us to determine if they're going to tap into those reserves of motivation, right? So every human decides every day how much of their motivation they're going to tap into. So where does that leave you as a leader in your organization? What is your job when it comes to motivation in the workplace? This is the biggest idea you will take home today. It's your job to create the environment where employees will tap into more of their personal motivation each day. It's a slight change in wording, but it's significant, a significant change in attitude and impact for you as a leader. Now, how do you do that? That's the million-dollar question. How are you going to create the environment for more engagement? The answer, it's not the only answer, but the one that sure does seem to work. Give people what they crave. All right, let's dive into this concept of crave, what it means, where it came from, why it's critical for humans to have it, to thrive at work, and most importantly, how giving it to others will help you create an even better place to work. So let's start with you. We're going to have you type into the chat box here. I want you to type in what you crave at work that causes you to be happier and a little bit more motivated. I asked you to think about this in the video. Some of you hopefully got to see that, the invite video. I want you to think about what is it you crave at work that causes you to feel a little bit happier, more motivated, more productive. It just feels good when you get this at work. And Jamie, I'm going to need your help here reading off some of the responses we get. Unfortunately, I still can't see in the chat box. I don't know if I'm just not looking in the right area, but. Jamie, we got some coming in.
Yep. Hey, Greg. So people are saying learning from others, respect, recognition, pat on the back.
I'm writing these down fast and furious. We got learning, respect, recognition, pat on the back.
Feeling part of a goal.
Part of a goal. Hey, you know what? We'll go with our first half a dozen or so here because they're perfect responses. Look, as it turns out, and by the way, this isn't my first rodeo with this. I've done this experiment 1,000 times and the results come out the same time after time after time. As it turns out, what you crave is not an anomaly at all. In fact, the cravings that were just shared are so similar to what researchers and scientists and scholars have been telling us for decades. Decades. That's right. For the past 80 years, social scientists, researchers, and scholars have been studying motivation at work and learning why some people are motivated and some, well, they're just not. And most importantly, they discovered over and over and over again what causes humans to tap into more of that personal motivation. I hold in my hand a book I got from the Lassen Community College Library about 15 years ago. The last time it was taken out was April of '95, so I don't think they're missing it. Remember these cards? Remember these? Gosh. Anyway, I found this book on my quest to understand motivation in the workplace. For my own consulting work and work we're doing with our clients. And I came across this book called The Motivation to Work. All right, this is the most exhaustive and interesting study by a guy named Fred Herzberg, and he had 2 colleagues with him. They did a 4-year study on one question: what causes you to be motivated at work? So they appropriately titled the book Motivation to Work. This is in 1955. Okay, so why is that a big deal? 1955 to 1959, over 4 years, they studied one thing their entire careers: what causes humans to produce more motivation in the workplace. And they came up with 2 responses, which are very much in alignment with learning, respect, recognition, pat on the back, and part of a goal, which is another way of saying achievement. The first one they listed: a feeling of accomplishment, relevance, purpose, and meaning. And recognition, when others notice and praise, a showing of respect for doing good work. Now, the problem with studies back in the 1950s is that nobody really read them. They didn't have the internet to go shoot their study all over the place to everyone's desktop. But they did cite in this one book in 1955 to 1959, this published in 1959, they cited 128 previous studies that all backed up their work. The reality is, folks, that what you crave and what I'm showing here on your screen, a sense of achievement and sense of recognition, people have been craving this forever. But what's interesting is look at what people use at work, what leaders use at work to try to drive motivation. There's usually a lack of alignment there. A study, I recall a study just a few years back, 18 different developed countries seeking to understand, again, what are the top 3 motivations for employees? The idea of money was only listed in one country in the top 3, and that was China, and it was listed as 3rd. What's really interesting on this, in this particular study, is achievement and recognition were 93% and 75% more impactful than increasing someone's salary when it comes to increasing their motivation. Let me say that one more time, because it's sometimes that people hear that and go, what? What did he just say? They proved in this book that these 2 motivators of achievement and recognition were 93% and 75% more impactful than increasing someone's salary when it came to sparking improvements in motivation. I'm going to give you one more study. Share one more quick one from the 50s. If you inherited enough money to live comfortably, would you still work? One question. What percentage of people do you think said yes? 80% of workers said, yes, I would still work. But what matters most is why. A desire to do something interesting, a sense of purpose and accomplishment, a feeling of self-respect. Sounds familiar, right? I asked you what you crave: respect, recognition, getting a pat on the back, feeling like I'm part of a goal and having an achievement. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Folks, there's 8 decades of proof. I just showed you a few of this, the studies from the early days, but my gosh, the studies today are happening, probably 2 or 3 of them going on right now since we started. So after studying and digesting 80+ years of research and nearly 2 decades working alongside leaders like yourself on their quest to improve workplace culture and create better customer experience, it became evident that there are 3 things humans crave. So we're going to have you write these down. 3 things that if you give these to others, you help them achieve what they crave, they'll be happier, more motivated contributors to their organization's success. They become more engaged. Ready? Write these down. 3 things. First, respect, which you already hit on. Second one listed that Jamie shared. Next one, purpose. Show me that how what I do makes a difference. Help me see that positive impact I make. And third is relationship. Help me build a stronger relationship and connections with people at work, especially my manager. Now, here's the interesting thing on relationship. The research today says that 75% of people say the most stressful part of their job is, anyone want to type that into the chat box? What do 75% of people say the most stressful part of their job is what? Anyone type it in there, Jamie?
No responses quite yet.
Throw it out there for you then. Their boss.
Clarity is one that just came through. Performance reviews.
75% of people say the most stressful part of their job is their manager, their boss. Research last year said that 3 out of 4 people would take a new boss over a pay raise. Now, look, I'm not sharing this to depress you. I'm sharing this because it's an easy fix. It's an easy fix. We'll start getting closer to the fix here in just a moment. To take you back to 2019, back in the days when we used to all go to conferences. I had the privilege of being a keynote speaker at the SHRM conference. For those of you that don't know SHRM, it's the Society of Human Resource Management. It's the largest gathering of HR professionals in the world. 23,000 people at this event in Las Vegas. Surely this group of human resource leaders and professionals would know and be practicing the secret to fueling more of Crave in the workplace. So I began my time with them, much like I did here today, and I introduced the Crave methodology. And then I asked them a question. I said, raise your hand if you do not like to be recognized when you do a good job. How many of you just don't like to be recognized when you do a good job? So of course, no hands went up. Then I asked them, how many of you do a really good job recognizing others? And when you do, and you feel like you do that often enough, and what percentage of hands do you think went up? Not many. Again, I've replicated this study 1,000 times. And the most I've ever seen go up in a room is about 20%. Let me go back to that question again. I asked the question, raise your hand if you do a really good job recognizing others when they do a good job, and you do that often enough. And I got about 10% of these HR managers, human resource managers, to actually raise their hand. Folks, there's so much data out there that says we're not recognizing people enough. 70% of employees wish they received more recognition. 83% of leaders say they could do more to recognize others. They know this. 79% of employees say they'd work harder if they felt they were better recognized. I mean, think about that. If for no other reason, we should be recognizing people more proactively because they'll work harder. 79% of employees who quit their jobs cite lack of appreciation as a key reason. And 65% of employees say they've not been recognized in the past year. And the Department of Labor says the #1 reason people leave their jobs, you guessed it, they don't feel appreciated. Think about that, folks. This is not a complicated fix. This is not a complicated fix. All right, until now, I've shared the social science behind the human psychological needs that most impact motivation at work. Let me give you the science behind this before we get into the actual solution in a few moments here. But from a biological perspective, the science is irrefutable. Allow me to introduce you to what I call the happy threesome of brain chemicals. This threesome directly impacts your motivation and ultimately your productivity at work. And look, I get there's a lot of events in your day that can trigger the release of these chemicals I'm going to share with you. You're going to see that when you strategically recognize someone for doing a good job, doing good work, puts you as the leader in the driver's seat to creating more motivation, more commitment, more engagement in the workplace. Let's start with dopamine. Dopamine helps regulate the pleasure center of your brain. It contributes to our motivation by sending signals to us, to our receptors in our brain that says, hey, this feels good. It's often thought of as a happiness drug, but that's a big misconception because dopamine is actually involved with the anticipation of happiness, not actually that you're happy. Right? That's why when you smell the cookies, the dopamine goes off. When you receive that text or the Facebook message or something triggers that, they say they get these little bits of dopamine. But too much dopamine can be addictive. Let's acknowledge that. But at work, it's a different ballgame. Being recognized for a job well done provides a healthy, small increase in dopamine, a small hit that encourages us to keep going and work hard to be successful in hopes that we get a little more later on. At work, dopamine is triggered when we feel as if we're making progress towards stated goals and objectives. So write that down. Dopamine makes us feel pleasurable when we're making progress. So when you've got let's say Emily works for you and she does a nice job double checking the paperwork that needed to go out to that customer. if you said, hey, Emily, when you double check the paperwork like you did, you're delivering our core value, let's say, of high quality. Keep up the good work. Way to go, Emily. Right? What Emily hears is, fantastic. They respect me. Going to your words, she got the pat on the back. She feels like she's part of a goal. They respect me, and I make a difference. That, of course, is the dopamine talking. All right, let's look at the next one. Serotonin. That's the chemical responsible for our moods. Right? If you're in a good mood, you've got serotonin to thank. If you're in a bad mood, then you can blame serotonin for that or the lack thereof. Interestingly, 80% of serotonin exists in our gut, which is why when we're really hungry, we get a little hangry. You get a little hangry, don't you? Because that's where the serotonin is produced, and when we're hungry, we're not getting it. But at work, the serotonin levels can also spike when we feel valued and appreciated. So consider the feeling of pride that you get when others appreciate and respect the work that you do. Let's do this. Let's do a little visioning exercise for a moment. Everybody, let's take a minute. I want you to just take a deep breath and close your eyes. Take you on a little journey, quick little journey here. Take a deep breath, eyes closed. I want you to think back over the past few weeks. Think of something that you accomplished that you actually feel good about. Did you learn a new task or a better way of doing something? Did you complete something at work maybe that you're proud of? It's anything that you might have achieved or gotten done. Once you got that success in your mind, I mean, you did it. No matter how big or small it was, you accomplished something important to you. Think about that. Zero in on that accomplishment. How do you feel right now? Do you feel respected? Do you feel you made an impact? What helped cause that feeling? A little serotonin boost. So again, I ask you as leaders responsible for creating the environment for more engagement, consider the power that you have to spot moments employees should feel proud about. Consider the opportunity you have to create the environment for more engagement by giving people more of what they crave, more of what you crave. All right, the third example of the third of the happy threesome of brain chemicals here that influence your motivation is oxytocin, known as the trust chemical, and it's activated by positive social interactions. And here's what's interesting about oxytocin and us at work. When we feel a connection with others, oxytocin is triggered. So acts of kindness trigger the production of oxytocin. So consider when you recognize the good work of someone, you help stimulate a trust and a sense of connection. Consider when you invest just a little bit of time, let's say just 10 minutes by Friday. You not only trigger a release of oxytocin for them, but the act of kindness will provide you a hit of oxytocin as well. And what a wonderful win-win situation that is. You get to provide people what they crave, and in return, you get a little shot of the feel-good as well. Look, folks, this is not my opinion. It's fact, rooted in biology. When people get recognized and feel appreciated for doing good work, they receive boosts in dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, which all work together to activate the pleasure centers in our brain, which helps us to feel more motivated and committed at work. I've shared the social and biological science that all indicates that if you fuel the workplace with more of what people crave, you're going to get more engagement. You're going to get more engagement. Now, don't fall victim to this idea of common sense, because it's not common sense. And even if, okay, let's say it is common sense, it's not common practice. It's not common practice. I wouldn't be using the same slide that 2/3 of the American workforce is not engaged or actively disengaged for 19 years if it was common practice. And I have proof of this from dozens and dozens and dozens of companies that have taken on the ultimate leadership habit of strategically recognizing their people, following this simple recipe we're going to spend the back half of our time on. and it's driven over 3 times the amount of engagement than their closest competitors. It's landed nearly 70% of them on a best places to work list. I'll share you a simple example here. What I mean by strategically recognizing employees. I wrote this card out while I was lying sick in bed the other day. I still haven't mailed it yet, even though I have the stamp sitting right on it. This is to Courtney. Courtney's been my head of operations and quality for 15 years. But still, she did a great job reviewing a deliverable last week, actually 2 weeks ago now. So I'm a little late with this one. This should be more timely than I'm making this one. But I said, Courtney, your final review of the Driver's Village deliverable was terrific. By the way, it's just a postcard. It's got some of my own personal value statements on it. I said, your final review of the Driver's Village deliverable was terrific. You caught every potential error. A great example of demonstrating passion for client success. By the way, passion for client success is one of our core values. A great example of demonstrating passion for client success, which increases John, as CEO, John's confidence and ultimately leads to more referrals. Okay, so I just want you to grasp how I wrote this, because it took me about 90 seconds to write this. But there's a lot of strategic thought that went into what I wrote. Okay, 3 things that I did in this recognition in a simple postcard that you can replicate as well. Write down these 3 steps that I gave to you as an example. First sentence I wrote, your final review of the Driver's Village deliverable was terrific. You caught every potential error. We had done a values definition for a company, and so you have to, it's a lot of words to document all the meaning and behaviors behind their values. She caught everything. There was no error. Error-free went out the door as usual. So I told the action that she did. You got to tell the specific action. Second, connect it to a focus area. For us, that's passion for client success. My second sentence said, a great example of demonstrating passion for client success. And then the most important piece, if we're going to hit on what it is you and everyone else craves, right? The respect, sense of purpose. You have to tell what the impact is so that Courtney gets to understand the relevance and importance of what she did, right? That she's part of a goal, that she's not just getting a pat on the back, she's respected for doing a good job. So you got to share the impact. I said at the end, which increases John's confidence and ultimately leads to more referrals, because that's how we grow our business, referrals. Look, this isn't rocket science. I told you, simple and easy. 10 minutes a week, and you will be doing an amazing job. 10 minutes a week, that's it. And most of you have some sort of a technology platform you can do this with, or at the very least, you can do what I use as well. I use a combination of technology, and I'm a believer in once a week putting out at least 1 personal note. You can be strategic, yes, with something as simple as an old-fashioned personal note. Now, let me give you another case example here. This is a nursing home environment suffering from low employee engagement. They have about 50 managers in this organization. They're down in Jamestown, New York. Tom Holt is their CEO. He's getting ready to introduce me to come do a speech very similar to what we're doing here today. Got about 500 employees in this organization. He said to his group as he was about to introduce me to go on stage, he said, hey folks, you know, we've defined our core values. We all know what they are, why they're important, but we're really challenged with knowing how to do them more consistently. We're highly inconsistent. We can change this, he said. You can change this. We can become a better place to work, he told them, but we struggle with employee turnover, right? He said, I've been the CEO only for like 10 years, but I've been here for 23 years and we've had flat customer satisfaction. Flat, hasn't changed in 23 years, he said. He said, to you managers, you tell me that you're overworked and underappreciated. So he challenged them to what he called the 10-minute challenge that I still use today. 10 minutes per month to do something that will help Lutheran to increase employee engagement, become a better workplace. He said, all you got to do is stop, think about, and share an example of the Lutheran Jamestown core values in action. That's it. Take time to spot and share the values in action, whether they were using a card, which they had available, and they also had an online system. People could go in and do a post and share that. That's it, just 10 minutes a month. That equates to about 2 hours of time per year. In the first year, they got 75% of their managers to do this, to the tune of over 2,000 captured successes in their enterprise on their software system alone, not to mention all the postcards that went out. They had a 150% increase in employee engagement after 2 years, 12% drop in employee turnover after 1 year, and a 14% drop, 2% more after the second year, saving them about 400 grand a year. Absenteeism went down, overtime pay went down, stress at all other levels went down. Like these results I'm sharing, that I've seen this from industry to industry. Their quality scores went from 3-star to 5-star, and their customer satisfaction scores that hadn't changed in 23 years, according to Tom, were up by 20% after 3 years, 3 years in. Now, is this the only thing they did? Absolutely not. But there were no other major initiatives other than driving this culture of appreciation around our core values inside of our organization. So I remember talking with Tom about a year after they launched this 10 minutes by Friday challenge, and he commented on how much time he saves, and he said, at first, I thought this was going to be a real problem for me because I thought I was going to have, not going to have the time to do my 10 minutes by Friday. He said, but you know what? If employee turnover's down, does it not save a ton of time and costs associated for us with recruiting new employees and training them? In addition, he said, the organization, we have higher quality, which means we have more seasoned staff, leading to less time-consuming and expensive mistakes. Right? When quality's high, less time is spent redoing someone else's work. And lastly, when customer satisfaction and loyalty is up, he said to me, he said, it leads to less complaints and time spent dealing with unhappy customers. So lesson learned, giving people more of what they crave with a simple investment of 10 minutes by Friday to communicate more effectively with the power of employee recognition, it actually saves you time. We always think it's about time, that we don't have enough of it. Again, folks, I've witnessed these results just like Lutheran Jamestown's nursing home across 25 different industries over the past 2 decades. The same results time after time after time. When the organization gets the leaders to demonstrate the management skill of 10 minutes by Friday, it leads to more engagement and improvements in the business metrics that matter most to them. This is my favorite quote from Tom. You can certainly accelerate results without doing a great job recognizing employees. He said you can also start a fire without matches and lighter fluid, but doing so is way more difficult. 10 minutes by Friday, he said that's the fuel that ignites our business results. Let's consider the possibility that something as simple as spending a few minutes each week to spot an example of your company's core values could have the power to accelerate significant improvements in your business results. This is what my clients have found. When they do recognition strategically and genuinely, it drives these improvements, leads to stronger, more productive work cultures. So let's now shift over to you. What is it you want to see more of, right? Tom Holt and his team at Lutheran, they wanted to see employee turnover go down. They wanted less absenteeism. They wanted improved quality scores. They wanted customer complaints to go down and the satisfaction scores. They wanted those to go up. But as you're going to learn in this next exercise, we have one exercise we're going to do together here in the last part of our session. The secret to their success was simply to recognize the actions that lead to the improvements in results. So we're going to start with, what is it you want to see more of? And everybody should have gotten the handout. Jamie, is it posted somewhere for people that do not have the handout ahead of time?
Hey, Greg. Yeah, everyone can find the handouts in the handout section in your toolbar.
Terrific. So look, we're going to do a quick handout. A quick exercise. The idea here is to introduce it to you so that you are familiar with it, and then sit down with your leadership team later today, tomorrow, the next day, and actually do this exercise with them. So you can literally develop the skill of recognizing employees in a way that accelerates business results, in a way that's genuine and accelerates business results. So as you can see on my screen here, for those of you that don't have the handout, it's 2 simple steps. First step is to pick a business result, right? Like, how do you measure success in your organization? And I'll send these slides to you, Jamie. You can send these out to everybody afterwards so they don't have to scribble down all these examples. But it's helpful to think, I usually tell clients to start out thinking about revenue generating and cost reducing type metrics, right? You're looking for more repeat business. You're looking to increase your average sale. You're looking to improve your margins. Maybe it's your retention or referrals from customers. Whatever that is, you want more cross-selling and upselling of your services or products. Or what are the things that save you money? Cost avoidance or cost reduction metrics. Let's get the metrics in step 1. What do you want to see more or less of? We want less employee turnover. We want less quality issues. We want less product returns. Right? There's cost avoidance metrics, cost reducing metrics you want to see less of. So in the first step, just pick one metric. Then in the next step, this is where it gets a little tricky. You have to come up with a behavior that drives the metric that you should be watching out for, right? So if you want to improve quality on your shop floor, then you need to here's what every manufacturing company I meet does. They celebrate at the end of the week or month we had less quality defects, right? It's like the construction company that celebrates every month we had less accidents than the month before. When really, day to day, if you want to have the most impact on quality and accidents, you recognize the things that lead to quality issues. You recognize the actions that people do that lead to less accidents in the construction field, as an example. So the example that is on the screen in front of you is the metric is customer loyalty. So if you want more customer loyalty, then you should recognize when someone does a really good job following up with a customer to ensure they have what they need. Again, the whole idea here, folks, if you come up with a couple of different ways of what you're looking for, you'll be recognizing what you want to see more of. Now, before some of you chalk this up to, oh my gosh, but that's just people just need to be doing their job. No, that is such an old school way of thinking. But that's their job. That's what they get a paycheck for. They're supposed to follow up with customers. Maybe, but what if Johnny hasn't been doing a good job following up with the customers the way he's supposed to? Right? It's the old adage, if you want to teach a dog to sit, you don't hit it every time it doesn't sit. So when you catch Johnny doing it right, reinforce that. You'll be giving him the learning, the respect, the recognition, the pat on the back, he's part of a goal. When you do the recognition the way I shared with you, the 3 steps. Tell what they did, link it to one of your core values or some sort of a focus area for your business, mission, brand, some sort of statement of who you are. And then lastly, share the impact. And when you do that, you'll be giving people what they crave, that respect and sense of purpose. Now look, don't fall victim to that. It's their job, right? Think about it as a football game, right? Hopefully we have some football fans. We're right in the heart of the season here, right? To get to the Super Bowl or to win the championship in college football, you got to score you got to get a lot of first downs, don't you? Right? Those first downs are necessary. The best teams don't just throw a bomb for a touchdown every time. Right? So you need a lot of first downs in order to get touchdowns to drive the championships. Let's frame this out for you. Those effort level activities are the first downs. Right? It's when someone's setting the standard, they're just doing a really good job at their job. That's when we should be making sure to recognize them. We also want to recognize the touchdowns, right? Because those are the key results. And maybe that's a project success or a team success. Maybe they came up with an innovative idea or some sort of process improvement. And then there's the championships, right? The championships, those are the major accomplishments and milestones. We hit our sales goal, our productivity goal, our cost savings goal. The problem is most companies focus so much on the championships that's why we still have the energy crisis, the human energy crisis that we have. Now, folks, I beg you to think and consider a variety of different ways that you can take and put 10 minutes by Friday into action. You can do the personal note like I did. It's on my calendar every Friday to write one of these notes. Maybe you have an online platform where you can post a short, a little story about what somebody did or best practice or a wow moment. What if you did the old-fashioned way? We just had an in-person conversation. You Zoomed with someone, or if you're live in the office, you actually talk to them. I highly recommend a little tool called the 1-minute reminder. And actually, if anybody wants a copy of it, just email me. It's just I'll give my email at the end here. It's called the 1-minute reminder. You share it at a team meeting. Just 60 seconds at a team meeting to share one example of our values in action. Maybe, again, you give a gift of thanks every now and then. I'm not a huge fan of having to give out gifts, but some people enjoy doing that. Or it could be something as simple as an e-card or, like we just talked about, a postcard. So now we're coming to nearing the end of our time here together. You've had the opportunity to explore the potential for recognizing people in ways that will accelerate business results. I guarantee you, if you sit down with your team and do that exercise and you challenge yourself to come up with those behaviors, you are going to come up with a number of activities that you could easily be recognizing dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times in any given month. My question to you, though, is, will you invest the 10 minutes by Friday to stop and think about and share a success at work? All right, that's what I'm going to ask you to do. If we were all together, which we're not going to do today because it would be totally awkward, I would get you all to stand. I'd say, stand up if you can commit to doing 10 minutes every month, once a month. You pick the Friday, right? Because 10 minutes every week, that'd be a full day of your time, right? 10 minutes a week, 10 minutes, that would be 8 hours in any given year. But 10 minutes once a month, that's a total of 2 hours of your time to do something that you know would fuel the workplace with more of what people crave. You'd be doing an amazing job if you just did it every other week, but at least a minimum of once a month. And then every time I do this, everybody in the room stands up and says, yes, of course we're going to do it. And then I ask them, will you really do it? Because yeah, we just went through and just shared all this great logic, right? That of course we're going to have, we need to be recognizing and appreciating our people more, right? The dopamine release goes off in the brain. We plan to do something meaningful and important. But will you actually keep the commitment to yourself? For those of you that are sitting there going, yes, I'm going to commit to doing 10 minutes by Friday, at least once a month, if not more. But if you're like most, you feel overwhelmed and you got too much to do and too little time these days. Your to-do list feels like this raging river of responsibility where you get a few things checked off and then what's waiting for you? That's right, more stuff. The reality is, folks, you're never going to get caught up. The raging river does not end. Thinking that it will is total wishful thinking. But you can reprioritize based on what you think is most important to helping you create the environment for more employee engagement. You can prioritize based on a few activities that will help you fuel the environment with more respect, purpose, relationship. Remember, if you're a leader of teams and people and projects, it's your job to create the work environment for more engagement. But for those people that are adamant about saying, I just don't have time, that's the number one excuse. None of you are logged on today going, I just don't like the idea of recognizing and appreciating people. Some of you falsely believe you do it enough or do it well, but you're not sitting there saying, no, I don't believe in this. But you say, I don't have time. I'm just so busy. It's the most irrational excuse there is. I mean, how far did these guys get? I mean, think about it. Some of you have already begun to realize that you're already investing the time, but maybe in the wrong ways. I mean, just think about all the headaches and wasted time that results when people at work are not living your core values. Just think, if you and your fellow leaders would provide more of what they crave, might you end up saving time, just like Tom Holt did. In fact, lots of time. We have client after client tell us within 12 to 24 months, they're saving insane amounts of time. Just think about the time spent dealing with quality issues, mistakes, customer problems, other issues that drain productivity. Think about the slightest increase in manager and employee engagement and how it can lessen those time-sucking headaches. Remember, because each and every time you capture and share a success, you're also reinforcing both your core values and a business result when you follow those 3 steps that I shared with you. But before, I'm going to leave you with one more take-home value, okay, folks? Because if I had you all in the room and I asked you this question, I'd be a lot of glassy eyes staring at me, because I've done this over and over and over again. I get the same response. I ask, what's the most memorable behavior change you've made recently? Just because I've shown you how simple this is, does not mean it's going to be easy. Changing behavior is overwhelming for some, right? It's terrifying for others and downright uncomfortable for just about anyone else. I mean, 61% of people make New Year's resolutions, only 8% of people keep them. Think about that. 8% of people keep a New Year's resolution. Only 10% of people that say, or I'm sorry, 10% of people that have angioplasty or heart bypass surgery actually make a significant change to their exercise or dietary habits. Think about that. When you're confronted with change the way you eat and exercise or die, only 10% of people, according to the research, make that necessary change. Why? The reason for the constant failure in changing behaviors is because we don't know how to create and sustain habits. So I'd be remiss if I didn't leave you in our last thing together with a process to make it really easy to make 10 minutes by Friday habitual. All you need to do is take about 20 to 30 minutes and literally put your plan together for how you're going to master the 10 minutes by Friday habit. So this is your take home. And by the way, habit, right? What is that habit? A habit is a thought or behavior that's repeated over and over until it's just involuntary. And most of us think of habits as like a negative thing, right? But the reality is we're talking about positive habits here, right? Now, creating a habit. By the way, 95% of our thoughts, habitual every day. 45% of how we act, just habitual. We want to make recognizing and sharing success for each of you habitual. A management habit that becomes truly habitual for yourself. All right, I'm gonna, and Jamie, everybody has access to the habit worksheet, correct?
That's right, Greg.
If not, you can send that out to them afterwards. I'm going to give them a quick flyover of it. I'm just going to do a quick flyover just before my closing remarks here, okay? Folks, because here's the thing I want you to be excited about as you leave here today. This process will work for any habit you want to make in your life. Any behavior change you want to make in your life, this 5-step process will work. It's tried and true. But start off using it to make 10 minutes by Friday habitual. First step in making any behavior change happen, you have to change your mind. You have to decide that it's important and you want to do it. Then you have to put the routine and behavior in place. And I got in the worksheet that you all have, I've got examples. It's pre-populated with the 10 minutes by Friday habit. So it's pre-populated with ideas for what routines and behaviors. This is the easiest one of all. Just schedule it. I mentioned to you that I have a note on my calendar every Friday morning at 7:30 to do one of my recognitions. Just put it on your calendar. Then you got to deal with your willpower. Everybody's only got a certain amount of willpower every day, so you have to figure out where are you going to fall short? Where are you going to run out of willpower? And what are you going to do? And guess what? What's the number one thing that is the willpower obstacle for people? I don't have time. So you can get over that one fairly quickly. In step 4 in the worksheet, it lays out step by step how to focus on both personal and business benefits. If you do the exercise that we just went through 15 minutes ago, that will give you your list of different types of business benefits that you would expect to get. And then last but not least, every day, just check off and track whether you tried to do your habit. Just get a habit tracking app off your smartphone, and it just asks you every day, did I try? If I guarantee you, 100% guaranteed, if you will ask yourself, did I try to spot a core values moment or a brand in action, whatever you want to call it, if you ask yourself every day, did I try? I guarantee you will get better. Guaranteed. It takes 2-3 seconds a day. We're talking 30 seconds a week at the most. And you will get better because you'll be retraining your brain to think about spotting these examples that you can share. Now, folks, if you want a whole lot more information on this, the folks at LiveTiles are willing to send you out a copy of my last book, Crave. Just put your email in the chat box or email communications@livetilesglobal.com. And they're going to send you a copy of the Crave book, which goes into much greater detail on how to accelerate business results, making recognition a strategic management habit. And if you go to my website and you click under books, and the very top third navigation, if you click there, there's a whole bunch of free guides and templates. And if you use the password 10 minutes, 10 minutes written out, the folks at LiveTiles have made arrangements for you to have access to a course, which is in the tab in the upper right-hand corner called The Ultimate Habit. It's a 25-minute course. You and your entire team can have access to it for up to 6 months. It's about 25-minute course that takes you through step-by-step how to put the ultimate habit, the ultimate leadership habit of recognizing and sharing successes into practice. So you can have access to that. Again, it takes about 25 minutes to go through that, and you will be ready to rock and roll. And if that 10 minutes also, when you plug it in for the ultimate habit, the folks at LiveTiles have also made arrangements for you to get an audio overview of the book if you'd rather listen to a 20-minute audio overview, or if you just don't have time to read an entire book, there's an executive summary for SoundView Summaries that the 10 minutes code will work for you folks in the next 6 months to be able to get access to that material. So we've neared our end here, and so my final words for you folks in our last minute here. If after our time together, you got better at only one thing, and after you just invested an hour with me here, you only got better at one thing, investing 10 minutes every week, every other week or so, to share an example of how your company's values or someone's done something that represents your company in a positive way. How are you going to feel? You'd feel really good, wouldn't you? Of course you would, because you know you'd be creating the environment for more engagement, because you'd be reminding people on who we are and how we do it, and you bring in those values that every company seems to have to life. You feel great because you know you'll be doing your job to fuel the workplace with more of what people crave. Feeling respected, having a sense of purpose, knowing that their work is relevant, has meaning, and makes a difference. And lastly, just the act of doing that is going to strengthen your relationships with those you work most closely with. Folks, it has been an honor delivering my first COVID presentation with you folks. This is by far the best hour of my last week. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here with you today. Thanks for inviting me in.
Greg, thanks. That was amazing. Really appreciate that. So I took some notes, and it took me till just now. I'm not sure if you guys can see this or not, but you probably can't see that. But that is here. Let me see that angle. That is a card that Greg sent me actually more than 2 years ago.
Oh my
you
gosh.
Probably wrote it at 7:30 in the morning. And I kept it. I just thought it was a random nice postcard. And you had commented on some stuff about our kids and sports and sort of balancing a lot of things I thought was super nice. And I took a picture of it because I don't know where the postcard would eventually end up. And I realized that this is probably what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
I'm a little slow on the uptake, but I eventually got it.
That's awesome.
Before we move on to the next thing, I just, there's one question I want to ask kind of on behalf of our customers and to some degree our employees that are working with customers, is that maybe it's sort of two phases, two parts here. One is how public should recognition be? And it sort of dovetails into the second part of the question, which is with so much remoteness right now, and not only remoteness being us working out of our homes, but some workers are by nature more remote in terms of the type of work they do. They might be on a shop floor. they might be, you know, in a store somewhere, in a call center, kind of on the phone all day. What's one tip you can share to sort of recognize and get them engaged along this process?
All right, so the first question on the public. In the majority of cases, people love recognition, and they don't. The more people that know that they got recognized, the better. However, as a manager and leader, you got to know your people, and if you have a situation where you got, like, for instance, Courtney, the person I'm writing this note to, I would never, in 10, 15 years, I never went online and did a recognition of Courtney that was seen on our intranet portal. I do personal notes every now and then because she does not like public recognition. But she's in what I would consider the 1% to 2%. But you got to know your people. So in most cases, the public recognition, people eat it up. They love it. It makes them feel good. They get what they crave, right? The respect. They see the difference they're making. The tips for the remote workers, you know, we're all new at this game. We are all new at this game, working remote, you know, where you got to work a little harder to spot those examples. And use the technology to make sure that take 60 seconds at the beginning of a Zoom meeting to share an example of a success, things like that. That would be my tip. Do a 60-second recognition at the beginning of every daily, weekly, whatever monthly meeting, because you got to work a little harder to find those examples when the office closes, when the Zoom meeting shuts down, or the go-to meeting or the Teams meeting shuts down. Right? I mean, the visibility is not there for a lot of people. So you have to really do more looking, which makes the 10 minutes by Friday even more important. You got to spot those examples. And you know what? You can always go to customers and ask them, hey, how are things going? And they always tell you, like, what they like and who did what they did with it that they like. And so that's another way to just make sure you're able to fish for examples of where people are worthy of recognition.
Great, thanks. Well, again, Greg, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for the content. If any of you do want more information from Greg directly, just let us know. We'll make sure we get connected with you and him in short order.